We're the audience.
When you're hungry and sitting down to eat, most likely the last thing going through your mind is, what exactly am I putting into my body? Genetically modified foods and crops are a huge controversy, but before we get into that, let's talk more about the how and why. Genetically modified organisms are defined as organisms in which the genetic material has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally. Genetic modification allows individual genes from the organism to be transferred to another organism. Why are genetically modified foods produced? The main reason for genetically modifying foods is for crop protection. Crops are modified to increase insect resistance, virus resistance, and herbicide tolerance. However, crop protection is not the one and only reason. Genetically modified foods are also produced because there are some said benefits for the producers and consumers, such as low price, durability, and nutritional value. There are many controversies surrounding the topic of genetically modified food. Some of the key areas of controversy include the risk of harm from genetically modified food, whether genetically modified food should be labeled, and the effect of genetically modified crops on the environment. The main health concerns with genetic modification are allergenicity, gene transfer, and outcrossing. Allergenicity is defined as the tendencies for an organism to provoke an allergic reaction. Generally, the transfer of genes from commonly allergic foods is discouraged unless it is proven that the protein being transferred is not allergenic. Gene transfer from genetically modified foods to cells in the body or bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract causes a concern. Although the possibility of transfer is low, the use of technology without antibiotic-resistant genes has been encouraged. The movement of genes from genetically modified plants to conventional crops or related species in the wild is known as outcrossing. Several countries have adopted strategies to prevent outcrossing, including a clear separation of fields with genetically modified crops and conventional crops. Whether or not genetically modified foods should have to be labeled is another big controversy. Although there is no conclusive evidence of health risks related to genetically modified foods, some people feel very strongly about their right to know exactly what foods they eat that have been modified and how those foods were modified. On November 6, 2012, California's Proposition 37 that dealt with labeling genetically modified foods was voted on and defeated. However, that will not be the last you hear of this issue. And lastly, the effect of genetically modified crops on the environment is another pressing issue involved in genetically modifying foods. The ecological risks of genetically modified crops pose 6 different kinds of potential risks. First, the genetically modified crops themselves could become weeds. Second, the crops might act as conduits through which new genes move to wild plants. Third, crops modified to produce viruses could facilitate the creation of new, more widely spread viruses. Fourth, plants modified to produce potentially toxic substances could present risks to other organisms. Fifth, genetically modified crops may have effects that ripple through the ecosystem. And sixth, the crops might threaten centers of crop diversity. Although these scenarios do pose us risks of genetically modified crops, the good news is that there have been no serious environmental impacts or catastrophes associated with genetically modified crops. In conclusion, genetic modification is a growing topic of concern for many people. Even though there have been no reported complications with genetically modified foods, the controversy is still there.